Hello, my name is Cynthia Martinez, and my research to practice is low reading levels. And the reason why I chose low reading levels is because many students struggle with reading, and many do not read at their reading level. A large population of students struggle with reading, and therefore I thought I would just do my project on it. So how can we improve reading performance in our schools? So there's a lot of different strategies that can be done. And some of the impacts for low reading levels is number one, academic success for children is usually founded on their ability to read proficiently. And that means being able to read fluently, being able to comprehend the material that they are reading, having fluency, vocabulary, word recognition. So there's a lot of things that entail being able to read proficiently for academic success. And another impact is that 20 to 25% of fourth grade readers fail to reach even partial mastery of grade level knowledge in reading. So a lot of students are reading far below grade level, and because reading level obviously is in every content area, then that poor reading goes across the different content areas. And then the third impact is that there's a low ability to use reading strategies, or an impact is that students have a low ability to use reading strategies and knowledge in effective ways. So oftentimes students don't have the skill set necessary to read. So some of the strategies that they may or may not have learned, hopefully learned, they just don't know how to apply it to their everyday day-to-day reading, whether it be books for personal use at home or at school during silent reading, or textbooks that the teacher is having them read. So how can we reduce the reading gap? So what are some of the ways that we as educators can assist students in improving their reading? And the plan to reduce the impact of low reading levels, it's very difficult to come up with just one strategy or one game plan. And the reason being is that not all students learn the same. Therefore, not just one specific strategy or plan will be something that can fit all students. So it's not it's not a cookie cutter mold, one size fits all. It has to be something that is based on the individual need of the student. But some key things or some strategies in general that can work across students in varying degrees is to use academic language whenever possible when speaking with students. Oftentimes, as educators, as teachers, we get comfortable with our students and we start to kind of slack off in our language. We use our, basic day-to-day language with students when in actuality, what we need to do is use those academic words, that expanded vocabulary. Therefore, the students are exposed to it on a regular basis, and they start to develop that vocabulary necessary for reading. Step two is to make vocabulary easy to learn and teach words intentionally. We shouldn't just throw words at students at random and say, okay, this is your vocabulary word, learn it, and you'll have a test on Friday. We have to make it to where it is intentional. What is the purpose behind this specific word or group of words that the students are learning? How are we going to apply it in a specific content area or whatever it is that the students are learning? And then step three is to use tools to clearly connect sentences and paragraphs. We need to make explicit learning when it comes to making connections between sentences and, from sentences to paragraphs. And part of that connectiveness is to use transition words like therefore, however, whereas, because, instead of just using the usual first, second, next, then finally. Step 4 is to use think alouds and scaffolding. So a lot of times students don't know how to break down whatever it is that they're reading. And it's up to educators to model how to do think alouds, how to ask ourselves, what can we do next? Or how can we chunk this piece of information or break it apart? What context clues can we use in order to understand or better understand what we're reading or what we're trying to learn? So using those think alouds and scaffolding, breaking apart that information, and giving some background information depending on what the content areas is, and then building students that way would be an excellent way to help with reading levels. And then the fifth step is to build connections. So oftentimes students don't see the point in what they are reading. They don't understand how it affects them directly. So building that connections, making connections with the content that they are reading will facilitate them understanding what they are reading, the purpose of their reading, the content area. So finding ways to make connections between the material and students will definitely assist in having students have that eagerness to read and eagerness to learn and just better themselves overall. So like I said previously, I don't think that there's one specific plan that can fit students, because everyone learns at a different pace, everyone learns differently, and we have to be open to that, and then just do whatever fits our students as best possible. So maybe one type of strategy will fit a handful of students while something else will fit another handful of students. And we also have to take into consideration that we do have a lot of English language learners that have to start at the very, very bottom. Having them build the vocabulary by showing them the word, breaking it apart, having cognates if possible, and showing them pictures to go along with it would be something that you possibly will do with someone who's an English language learner, but may or may not necessarily do that with someone who's a native speaker who just needs to learn to read the word when they see it, to be able to break it apart and say, oh, when I see this word, this is what it says. So the criteria for success, I have two measures for criteria for success. One of them is to have an increased score on standardized reading tests by at least one grade level by the end of the school year. So this is something that is measurable. This is something that we can see instantly. We know that a lot of students get tested in the beginning of the school year, kind of to get an idea of where they stand coming into our classroom. And so throughout the school year, students are given 3 to 4 more standardized exams. So if we are able to give them direct, explicit instruction, and then see the results in the standardized testing, this will give us a good gauge of whether or not the strategies or the plans we have created for our students, our particular students, are indeed being effective. And if not, if we are not seeing that progress, then we know that we need to change our game plan and figure something else out that is better suited for our students. And then the second indicator is in our for our district specifically, is to have an increased reading fluency and reading level on the BAS assessment. And the BAS assessment is another type of reading assessment, kind of like a running record where students read to us, and we, check mark any mistakes, and then from there figure out what their reading comprehension is, what their fluency is, what their accuracy is. So it's something that we can do as, face to face with students, and then kind of give them some feedback once they are finished. And again, this would, a measure would be that there's at least one level of increase by the end of the school year. And in closing, reading below grade level brings on its own issues with students not being able to read content at grade level. Struggling readers depend on educators or others to assist in reading material and breaking it down for them in order to understand. So this, scaffolding, this is something that we do for students, But we, as students get older, we need to be in a situation or a position where we do less scaffolding and the students are able to work independently with less support. And then all standardized testing has a lot of reading components. And if students are not able to read and comprehend what is being asked of them, whether it be, directly reading or a science assessment or a math assessment, then they'll continue to score poorly and therefore continue to doubt their abilities to learn. Oftentimes, it's not that they don't know the material, is that they don't know how to synthesize what they have already learned in writing, because we know that reading and writing go hand in hand. So if they're struggling readers, most likely they're struggling writers, or vice versa. So when they feel that they don't have the ability to learn, then they shut down and therefore get further behind in their academics. So teaching students effective strategies to use to read, and to give them reading activities like word walls, verbal visual associations, and literacy centers, along with those that I had previously mentioned, students will have the opportunity to grow as independent readers. They will need us to less and less to facilitate those reading material, and they will be able to use strategies to be able to break down words, to break down paragraphs, to be able to summarize, comprehend. And then also, if we're using higher level thinking and questions, then this will prompt them, to have that higher level of thinking and therefore grow. Thank you.